cause I'm on one.
You know, we have ones that's Ras Tafari, live in the city, Kingston City, Manhattan, like you know, we live amongst our universal brothers and sisters, and Rastafari is for each and every one. So it's not a...
Swinging for the fences for the home run.
Habesha, Begusana, guess the Ethiopia. Habesha, Mr. Shomaya, the Farambasa. Habesha.
Even further beyond into the universe, but I've got to make it to first.
Urgent message from the 12 seers of Mount Zion. They said the black nation will be blessed by God in these days. Circle the mountain and go home. Shabbat, Mount Zion calling me.
And now, of course, interestingly enough, this report came up at the end of the year in 2019. But again, we sought to stay and wait it out a little bit more just to see what would come out of a lot of the reports that would, you know, surface here or there, especially with the international spectrum being what it is. And of course, the World Economic Forum just passing their yearly convention, or the Davos meeting that ones usually attend in Switzerland every year, where there are a lot of high-ranking officials, government heads of state, so on and so forth, very prominent businessmen and women who usually talk about many of the estates and affairs of the world, you know, at the present time, and what they project will be coming in the near and far future as far as the layout is concerned. But here, coming from Bloomberg, a very interesting take, again, that we wanted to take some time to actually flesh things out a bit and see what would come of these reports. Entitled here, The U.S. Won't Take All Troops Out of Africa, Pentagon Chief Says. This by Glenn Carey, January 30th, 2020. A very interesting article that we, you know, had sought to get into a bit. And again, at the end of the year of 2019, there was a lot of mulling over in this current administration of pulling a lot of troops out of Africa. And we weren't exactly sure as far as, you know, which troops might be the most likely to be pulled out and why. And having a certain situation come up in this point, and again now with the U.S.-Iran situation that also took place not too long ago, and of course Syria being an ongoing situation, the Middle East being a very, you know, unstable situation for quite some time over the short span of years, and even so from the long period as well. But here, continuing on with this report from Bloomberg, very interesting to say the least. The U.S. has no plans to pull all troops out of Africa, even as it looks at how to adjust forces for strategic priorities led by competition with China and Russia, Defense Secretary Mark Esper said. We are not going to totally withdraw forces from Africa, Esper said at a Pentagon news conference on Thursday, seeking to allay growing concerns on the continent that a review he's ordered will result in an American withdrawal. The economy of force does not mean complete withdrawal from any continent, quote unquote. Esper started with Africa in what he says will be a region-by-region assessment of whether troops are deployed in keeping with the Defense Department's new strategy that makes countering threats from Russia and China the top priority. Even as the U.S. reviews its force posture, though the threat from Islamic militant groups persists across Africa, an al-Shabaab raid this month on a military base in Kenya killed 3 Americans and destroyed 6 aircraft. Islamist militant killed 39 people this week in Burkina Faso. The U.S. review has raised concerns among allies that the Trump administration may abandon the continent as it tilts towards countering China in the Indo-Pacific region. France's Defense Minister Florence Parly warned on Tuesday that, quote-unquote, terror will thrive in the Sahel region of Africa, without U.S. support. In the Sahel, the added ban on the southern fringe of the Sahara Desert that stretches through some of Africa's poorest and least governed countries. Terrorists are launching attacks against government forces. U.S. officials have pointed to the Sahel as one of the biggest concerns in their counterterrorism campaign. General Stephen Townsend, head of U.S. Africa Command, or AFRICOM, said on Thursday that the U.S. would have to coordinate with the French and other European allies on any change in the American troop posture in the region to prevent radical terrorist groups and China and Russia from capitalizing on a drawdown. The terrorist threat in Africa is very serious. And on the advance, Townsend told the Senate Armed Services Committee, as we see the violent extremists advancing, if we were to withdraw support from the French precipitously, then that would not go in a good direction, he said. What we have to do is we've got to synchronize our support and the removal of support if we decide to do that with the arrival of European support. Africa has emerged as a new area of great power competition between the U.S., China, and Russia. Both are expanding their military and economic presence as they pursue access to energy, rare earths, and political influence. China and Russia view Africa as a critical battlefield to fulfill their global ambitions and challenge the United States, Senate Armed Forces Chairman Jim Inhofe said during the hearing with Townsend. This is particularly evident in Africa, quote unquote. And the article ends there. And again, so much more to really get into as far as this report is concerned. And again, we are hoping to get a lot more information as far as much of the details and what we are seeing here with a possible drawdown or a withdrawal from the African continent of the U.S. AFRICOM or U.S. Africa Command, or AFRICOM for short. And as we can see, Europe definitely showing some concerns, even at the possibility of a drawdown or a withdrawal from the United States armed forces in and around what they call the Sahel region. And again, that is the long-stretching rainforest to desert region that leads right into the Sahara and much of the Great Desert across Africa, which stretches, of course, from east to west continentally, roughly around the areas of what ones would know as the country of Senegal, all the way to what they would know as Eritrea. So a very interesting level of interest here, special advisories that are, again, going out. We can say just in the least we've had certain eyes on this particular moment and other advanced studies, which we can't go into at least at this moment given the time, but hopefully we'll be able to expand on that a little bit more on various platforms, especially on our channel, and also with Ras Tafari on the Brink. But ones, of course, look out for that coming up very soon, just to give ones a bit more information on what is going on with a lot of the military and, or at least the militaristic special interests of each country, especially those outside of the continent of Africa as well as those inside. And we'll be able to get a bit more of a grander picture in the great scheme of things as far as much of the special interests of all parties involved.